who was Margaret Macdonald? So, Margaret Macdonald was the PhD student of Susan Stebbing. Stebbing was the first woman in Britain to be a philosophy professor. And she was one of a number of women, Macdonald that is, who was supervised by Stebbing in Bedford College, which is now part of Royal Holloway, and ended up having careers in philosophy. After becoming a professor there herself, Stebbing set up this pipeline for women to get into the profession. Both Stebbing and Macdonald, unfortunately, died in their 50s, so they were relatively young. And that means that it had an impact on their legacy. So neither Macdonald nor Stebbing had a great deal of students who they supervised later in their life, for example. Together, Macdonald and Stebbing founded a journal called Analysis, which went on to become the journal of what's known as analytic philosophy. Analytic philosophy, by the way, is the main dominant tradition of philosophy in the English-speaking world. What were Macdonald's key ideas? In the 1930s, 40s, and 50s, and even to some extent today, most philosophers believed that philosophy should be like a kind of science. It should be empirical, objective, and help us to discover new truths or facts about the world. Macdonald challenged this view. So she argued that a philosophical theory was much more like a good story, or a captivating poem, or a piece of art. What do all these things have in common? According to Macdonald, they all, including philosophical theories, help us to see the world around us in a new light. They help us to find meaning in the ordinary and help us to appreciate what has become familiar or mundane in our lives. Why is Macdonald important today? Right now, scholars across the humanities, so in philosophy, literature, history, and beyond, are under a lot of pressure to justify and explain their value. And the difficulty there is that it's hard to quantify the value of studying subjects like philosophy or literature or art. But of course that doesn't mean there is no value. Macdonald warned the philosophers of her time that comparing philosophy to a science was holding it to a standard that it couldn't possibly hope to match. Philosophers don't discover new galaxies or chemicals or animal species. That's what scientists do. But philosophers can help us to find meaning and value in our everyday experiences. According to Macdonald, philosophical inquiry encouraged us to challenge our assumptions. It gets us to think about things we really ought to keep thinking about. For instance, to use an example from what's going on in the world around us today, take the issue of small boat crossings. Many of us will have firm views on this issue, but according to someone like Macdonald, through philosophical discussion, just like a literary treatment of the issue, so I have in mind the novel Prophet Song, which won the Booker Prize last year, we can learn to look again and perhaps see things a bit differently.